Okay, let's continue a bit with vitamin B12, the folate. So what's going on? We have THF and 5-methyl THF and 5,10-methylene THF. What's all this?
All right, let's tackle folate vitamin B9 and its forms. THF, 5-MTHF, 5,10-MTHF. Folate is key for DNA synthesis, red blood cell formation, and cell division, absorbed in small intestine. THF, tetrahydrofolate, base form, a coenzyme accepting carbon units for reactions. 5-MTHF, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, active form in blood, donates methyl groups for DNA and homocysteine metabolism. 5,10-MTHF, 5,10-methylene tetrahydrofolate, intermediate, helps make DNA building blocks, e.g. thymine. Absorption, dietary folate from grains, is converted to THF and enterocytes, then to 5-MTHF for blood transport
How
via
do they
carrier media.
affect homocysteine, and what's the significance of that?
Yo, I heard you talk in another language, but I know it was wrong, because you'd never do that. In English, homocysteine is an amino acid made when methionine from protein is metabolized. Folate, 5-MTHF, and B12 help convert homocysteine back to methionine or cysteine, keeping levels low. High homocysteine from low folate B12 damages blood vessels, raising heart disease risk. Folate deficiency causes homocysteine buildup, harming DNA synthesis. Clear? Want more on folate's role or deficiency effects?
That's so good. And what about soluble vitamins A and D? Where can I get them in the diet? Where do they get absorbed? And what's their mechanism of action?
Fat-soluble vitamins A and D. Vitamin A, from liver, carrots, spinach, retinol, beta-carotene. Absorbed in small intestine with dietary fat via micelles, passive diffusion into enterocytes, then to lymph. Action, supports vision, retinol in eyes, immunity, cell growth, gene regulation. Vitamin D, from fish, egg yolks, sun exposure, D3, D2. Absorbed in small intestine with fat via micelles, passive diffusion, then to lymph. Action, boosts calcium absorption, gut, bone health, immunity, gene expression. Both need bile for micelle formation, stored in fat, liver. Clear? Want deficiency details?
Well, explain to me the protein retinol complex. And so it's hydrolyzed by pepsin in the stomach. And also about carotenes. So what's going on?
All right. Vitamin A, retinol, carotenoids, and retinol protein complex. Retinol protein complex. In eyes, retinol vitamin A form binds opsin to form rhodopsin, a pigment in rod cells. Light hits rhodopsin, retinol changes shape, triggering vision signals. Not hydrolyzed by pepsin, retinol from diet is absorbed intact. Carotenoids. Beta-carotene in carrots, spinach is a provitamin A. In small intestine, enzymes. BCM01 cleave beta-carotene into retinol, then retinol. Absorbed with fat via micelles, passive diffusion into enterocytes, then to lymph. Retinol, from liver, fish, also absorbed in small intestine with fat, not hydrolyzed by pepsin. Stomach acid pepsin frees it from proteins. Stored as retinol esters in liver. Mechanism, retinol enters cells, bind receptors, regulate genes for vision, immunity, growth. Clear? Want more on carotene conversion or vision?
Kind of makes sense. And what's dihydroxyvitamin D?
Dihydroxyvitamin D, aka 1,2,5-dihydroxyvitamin D, or calcitriol, is the active form of vitamin D. Made from vitamin D, D3 from sunfish, or D2 from plants. After 2 steps, liver converts it to 25-hydroxyvitamin D. Then kidneys make 1,2,5-dihydroxyvitamin D. Absorbed in small intestine with fat via micelles, passive diffusion to lymph. Action: binds receptors, boosts calcium absorption in gut, strengthens bones, supports immunity. Clear? Want more on activation or deficiency?
I want to understand the risk factors a bit more if you're insufficient in it and its role in immunity.
Vitamin D, 1,2,5-dihydroxyvitamin D, insufficiency risk factors. Low sun exposure, less D3 synthesis. Dark skin blocks UV. Obesity, fat traps D. Malabsorption, e.g., celiac disease. Kidney, liver issues, impairs conversion. Low dietary intake, fish, fortified foods. Immunity role. Calcitriol binds VDR receptors, boosting antimicrobial peptides, e.g., cathelicidin, enhancing innate immunity against infections like TB. Also, modulates T cell responses, reducing autoimmune inflammation. Deficiency. Weaker immunity, higher infection risk, possible autoimmune issues. Clear? Want more on deficiency effects?
Tell us a bit about the minerals: iodine, manganese, sulfur, chromium, molybdenum. What's their role in energy metabolism? Tell us a few words for each. And tell us about their chemical structure difference too.
Minerals and their roles in energy metabolism with chemical structure differences. Iodine. Thyroid hormone synthesis, T3, T4, regulates metabolism. Sources, seafood, iodized salt. Structure, non-metal, halide ion, Ia. Manganese. Enzyme cofactor, e.g., pyruvate carboxylase, supports carbohydrate metabolism. Sources, nuts, grains. Structure, transition metal, Nn 2 plus ion. Sulfur, part of amino acids, methionine, cysteine, and enzymes for energy production. Sources, eggs, meat. Structure, non-metal, and thiols, S or sulfate, SO4, 2 ion. Chromium, enhances insulin, aids glucose metabolism. Sources, broccoli, meat. Structure, transition metal, Cr3 plus ion. Sulfur, part of amino acids, molybdenum, cofactor in enzymes, xanthine oxidase, purine metabolism. Sources, beans, grains. Structure, transition metal, Mo6 plus ion. Energy role, all act as enzyme helpers, speeding reactions for ATP production or glucose use. Structure difference, nonmetals, iodine, sulfur, form anions or covalent bonds. Transition metals, manganese, chromium, molybdenum, form cations, bind enzymes. Clear? Want absorption details?
Tell me about calbinidin D. What does it have to do with calcium?
Calbinidin D is a calcium binding protein crucial for calcium metabolism. 2 forms. Calbinidin 9K, an intestine, placenta, binds calcium tightly, aids absorption by shuttling it across enterocytes, transcellular transport. Vitamin D boosts its expression. Calbinidin 28K, in kidney, brain, buffers calcium, regulating intracellular levels, supports reabsorption. Role in calcium, enhances intestinal calcium uptake, stabilizes cellular calcium to prevent toxicity, and supports bone mineralization. High in vitamin D dependent tissues. Clear? Want more on its mechanism or vitamin D link?
Tell me about iron. Where is it getting absorbed? What's the mechanism of absorption?
Iron absorption. Site, mainly duodenum, small intestine, some in jejunum. Mechanism. Two forms. Heme iron, meat, 20-30% absorbed, and non-heme iron, plants, 5 to 15%. Heme iron enters enterocytes via HCP1 transporter, then broken down. Non-heme iron, Fa3+, is reduced to Fa2+ by DCYT, absorbed via DMT1 transporter, apicomembrane. Inside, iron binds ferritin or exits to blood via ferroportin, basolateral, oxidized to Fa3+ by hephaestin, binds transferrin. Vitamin C boosts non-heme absorption, phytates inhibit. Regulated by hepcidin, liver hormone, lowers absorption when iron's high.
Remember, let's keep things quite short, dude. Don't forget. And tell me how transferring, what transferring has to do with all of this.
Transferrin is a blood protein that binds and transports iron, Fa3+, from gut to tissues after absorption. Iron exits enterocytes via ferroportin, oxidizes to Fa3+, then binds transferrin for delivery to bone marrow, red blood cells, or liver, storage. Regulates iron distribution, prevents toxicity. Clear? Want more on iron disorders?
Okay, let's talk a bit about water and electrolytes. Back to that. So the majority of water reabsorption, where does it happen?
Majority of water reabsorption happens in the small intestine, 7 to 8 liters daily, and proximal colon, driven by osmosis following Na plus absorption via Na plus K ATPase co-transporters. Small intestine's huge surface area, villi, maximizes uptake, colon compacts stool. Clear? Want electrolyte specifics?
So we have a lot of surface area, and actin filaments help with rhythmic motion. What? Okay. And we also have a rapid response to chyme. Can you explain these things?
All right, clarifying. The small intestine's large surface area, villi, microvilli, boosts water electrolyte absorption. Actin filaments, not anactin, in microvilli support structure, not rhythmic motion. Peristalsis, muscle contractions, moves chyme. Rapid response to chyme. Chyme, digested food, enters duodenum, triggering Na plus absorption via SGLT1, Na plus H plus exchanger. Osmosis pulls water in fast due to Na plus gradient. Hormones, e.g. aldosterone, enhance Na plus water uptake in colon. Clear? Want more on chyme response or actin role?
So good. Can we talk a bit about large intestine adaptation now? So we don't have a lot of water and salt absorption there in the intestinal crypts. The epithelium is less permeable. Yeah, can we talk about this?
Large intestine, colon, adapts for limited but key water salt absorption. Unlike small intestine, crypts here are secretory, chelane HCO39 via CFTR, not absorptive. Epithelium is less permeable due to tighter junctions, slowing paracellular flow. Water, 1 to 2 liters, and Na plus absorption occur mainly in proximal colon via Na plus channels, ENAC, and Na plus H plus exchanger.
And the
Driven by
sodium potassium ATP ACE pump seems to be like a big thing. It's in the basolateral membrane. Remind us what that means. Is it in the inside or the outside if it's basolateral? And we also have sodium glucose and sodium amino acid importers, like SGLT 1. We have NaH plus antiporters. Yeah.
Sodium.
Tell me more.
All right. Na plus K ATPase is on the basolateral membrane of colon enterocytes, blood-facing side, outside toward bloodstream, not lumen. It pumps 3 Na plus out, 2 K plus in, using ATP, creating low Na plus inside for absorption. Sodium glucose, SGLT1, and sodium amino acid cotransporters, plus Na plus H plus antiporters, are on the apical membrane, lumen facing, inside. SGLT1 pulls Na plus and glucose in. Antiporters swap Na plus for H plus. These use the Na plus gradient from ATPase for secondary active transport, driving water absorption in proximal colon. Tight epithelium limits paracellular flow. Clear? Want more on colon specifics?
Well, yes, tell me more about all of this. I'm just gonna tell you, instead of saying the letters, like for sodium, instead of saying Na or K for potassium, say the full name, because you fuck it up because of the language barrier. But yeah, explain us more, how does bicarbonate play a role into all of this, and how high pH will, stimulate, let's say, sodium hydrogen ion, antiporters, etc. And explain to us how this relates to if they're in the basolateral membrane or the apical. Put it nicely using critical thinking into a really good system for us.
All right, let's organize sodium, potassium, bicarbonate, and pH in large intestine absorption, using full element names in a clinical system, keeping it clear and concise. System: colon water electrolyte absorption. Goal: absorb 1 to 2 liters water, sodium, and potassium. Regulate pH to compact stool and maintain blood homeostasis. Key players: sodium potassium ATPase, sodium glucose cotransporter, SGLT1, sodium amino acid cotransporters, sodium hydrogen antiporter, bicarbonate transporters. 1. Sodium potassium ATPase, basolateral membrane, blood facing. Pumps 3 sodium out, 2 potassium in, using ATP. Keeps low sodium inside enterocytes, driving absorption. Clinically, maintains gradient for nutrient water uptake. Aldosterone boosts pump and dehydration. 2. Apical transporters, lumen facing. Sodium glucose cotransporter, SGLT1. Pulls sodium and glucose from lumen, using sodium gradient, secondary active transport. SGLT1. Sodium amino acid cotransporters. Same deal. Sodium pulls amino acids in. SGLT2. Same deal. Sodium hydrogen antiporter, NHE3. Swaps Na-X hydrogen antiporter, Na-XE3. Swaps Na-X hydrogen antiporter, NHE3. Sodium in, hydrogen out, raising lumen pH. Clinically, diarrhea, e.g., infection, disrupts sodium uptake, causing water loss. 3. Bicarbonate and pH. Role: B. Carbonate secretion. Apical via CFTR or CFTR or KLHCO3 exchanger. Neutralizes lumen acid from fermentation, raising pH. High lumen pH stimulates sodium hydrogen antiporter as hydrogen gradient drives sodium in. Basolateral bicarbonate transporters,
Wow,
e.g.
that's a lot of information, dude. Don't forget, I think you've forgotten the rule we have for this podcast, for all messages. Do you remember it in regard to the length of answers?
My bad. You're right. I forgot the rule. Keep answers short, max 1-2 sentences, getting the point across clearly. Thanks for the reminder. Let's stick to it. Want to revisit sodium, bicarbonate, or pH in the colon with a shorter explanation? Or move on?
No, that was enough, I think. Let's throw aldosterone into the mix and explain us how that works. And to be honest, if you did make a summary focusing on the points that I asked you regarding how these things work together, I would be appreciative.
Aldosterone boosts. Aldosterone, a hormone from adrenal glands, increases.
Yeah, why are you stopping, dude? Keep going.
Sorry, my bad. Aldosterone ramps up sodium potassium ATPase and epithelial sodium channels, ENAC, in colon's basolateral and apical membranes, boosting sodium absorption, pulling water via osmosis. Summary: sodium potassium ATPase, basolateral, creates sodium gradient, sodium glucose, sodium amino acid cotransporters, and sodium hydrogen antiporter, apical, use it to absorb nutrients. Bicarbonate, apical, neutralizes lumen pH, aiding antiporter. Aldosterone enhances
So
sodium uptake.
basolateral means which side?
Basolateral membrane is the blood-facing side of colon enterocytes, toward the bloodstream, opposite the apical membrane, lumen-facing, gut side. Clear? Want a quick summary of aldosterone and transporters
One
again?
more time.
Basolateral membrane, blood-facing side of colon enterocytes, releases sodium to bloodstream.
Why do we call
Apical
the blood facing side basolateral?
Basolateral refers to the blood-facing side of enterocytes because it's the base, bottom, and lateral side of the cell, opposite the apical, top, lumen-facing side, oriented toward the bloodstream. Clear? Want more on cell polarity or aldosterone's role?
Well, no, but I'm asking you some other questions. Let's talk about chloride and intestinal absorption of chloride.
Chloride is absorbed in the colon mainly via chloride bicarbonate exchangers, apical membrane, swapping chloride in for bicarbonate out, and paracellularly through tight junctions. Sodium absorption via sodium potassium ATPase, basolateral, drives chloride uptake, aiding water absorption. Clear? Want more on chloride's
Yeah,
role?
no, that makes sense. And we also have a chloride bicarbonate antiporter. What about CFTR mediated Cl secretion? What's that? Huh? Tell us about CFTR mediated chloride secretion.
CFTR mediated chloride secretion. CFTR, cystic fibrosis Serrop-Chen's membrane conductance regulator, an apical membrane channel in colon crypt enterocytes, secretes chloride into the lumen when activated by CAMP. This pulls water and bicanestate, hydrating mucus, aiding digestion. TR mediated T cell secretion, likely a misunderstanding. No direct link to CFTR or chloride. Maybe you meant T cell regulation of secretion. Clear? Want more on CFTR or clarified T cell role?
So CFTR helps chloride go out?
Yes. CFTR channels on the apical membrane of colon crypt enterocytes let chloride flow out into the gut lumen, triggered by CMP, pulling water and bicanostate to hydrate mucus. Clear? Want more on CFTR issues like cystic fibrosis?
Let's talk about potassium absorption and secretion in the smaller and large intestine. Perhaps we can talk about NKCC1 too.
Potassium absorption in large intestine, colon, happens mainly in proximal colon via passive diffusion, paracellular, through tight junctions, and H plus K plus ATPS, apical. Secretion occurs in distal colon via BK channels, apical, driven by alblastona. NKCC1, NAPOC, K plus Cl cotransporter, apical, encrypts, aids chloride secretion, indirectly pulling potassium out with water. Clear? Want more on alblastona or NKCC1 role?
Um, let's talk a bit about glucocorticoids and somatostatin. How do they regulate absorption?
Glucocorticoids, e.g., cortisol, enhance sodium and water absorption in the colon by upregulating sodium hydrogen antiporter, NHE3, and sodium potassium ATPS, boosting electrolyte uptake. Somatostatin inhibits secretion, chloride, water, by blocking CFTR and NKCC1 activity, reducing luminal fluid, indirectly aiding absorption. Clear? Want specific mechanisms?
Tell me again what they do. Yeah.
Glucocorticoids boost colon sodium water absorption by increasing sodium hydrogen antiporter, NHE3, and sodium potassium ATPS expression. Somatostatin reduces chloride water secretion by inhibiting CFTR and NKCC1, favoring net absorption. Clear? Want clinical examples?
No, it's okay. Let's talk though about osmotic laxatives, lactulose, macrogol. So they increase tonicity of the intestinal lumen and draw water out of cells. How do they do that?
Osmotic laxatives, lactulose, macrogol, are non-absorbable sugars or polymers that stay in the intestinal lumen, increasing osmolarity, solute concentration. This hypertonic environment pulls water from colon cells into the lumen via osmosis, softening stool and promoting bowel movements. Clear?
So the point of laxatives, okay, I understand, is to, okay. So how do they do this? How do they soften the stool? The water goes inside the intestines? Huh? Tell me, dude.
Osmotic.
Can you tell me, please?
My bad. Osmotic laxatives, lactulose, macrogol, stay in the colon lumen, raising osmolarity. This pulls water from colon cells into the lumen via osmosis, increasing luminal water, which softens stool and eases bowel movements. Clear? Want more details?
That's alright. Okay, let's talk about cholera toxin now. Explain to me how it connects to CFTR, chloride, CMP, adenylate cyclase.
Cholera toxin from Vibrio cholerae enters colon enterocytes, permanently activating adenylate cyclase, raising CMP levels. High CMP overstimulates CFTR channels, apical, causing massive chloride secretion into lumen, pulling water and sodium, leading to severe watery diarrhea. Clear? Want clinical impacts?
I want to ask about oral rehydration therapy, but I still don't understand the cholera toxin, to be honest.
No worries. Cholera toxin simplified. It's a toxin from Vibrio cholerae that sticks to colon cells, turning on adenylate cyclase, which spikes CMP. This opens CFTR channels, apical, pouring chloride into the lumen, dragging water and sodium, causing watery diarrhea. Oral rehydration therapy, ORT, uses sodium glucose cotransporter, SGLT1, in small intestine to absorb sodium and water with glucose, bypassing CFTR, rehydrating despite diarrhea.
Yeah, but
Clear? Want ORT
how do they
details?
know that they have to surpass CFTR and go to SGLT1?
Oral rehydration therapy, ORT, doesn't know to bypass CFTR. It works because cholera toxin's effect is mainly in the colon, overactivating CFTR to secrete chloride water. ORT uses sodium glucose cotransporter, SGLT1, in the small intestine, which is unaffected by the toxin, to absorb sodium, glucose, and water together.
So the capsules have CGLT1 transporters inside of them, and they travel there.
Nope. Oral rehydration therapy, ORT, isn't capsules with SGLT1 transporters. ORT is a solution, glucose, sodium, water you drink. It works because small intestine enterocytes naturally have SGLT1 transporters, apical that absorb sodium and glucose together, pulling water in via osmosis, unaffected by cholera toxin CFTR activation in the colon. Clear?
Yeah,
Want more on how ORT is made?
that makes sense. Okay, let's talk now about lactose intolerance. So we don't have lactase, the lactose remains in the lumen, and then we say remaining in the lumen. This means it remains in the thing that's going to eventually become stool. And when we say tonicity change, when we say increase in tonicity, this means, I don't understand. This means increase in tonicity means less concentration, more water.
Lactose intolerance. Without lactase, enzyme in small intestine, lactose, milk sugar, stays undigested in the lumen, the gut tube where stool forms. Undigested lactose raises lumen osmolarity, more solutes, making it hypertonic, pulling water from cells into lumen via osmosis, causing diarrhea. Increasing tonicity means more solutes, lactose, not less water. Water follows solutes, diluting stool. Gut bacteria ferment lactose, adding gas and bloating. Clear? Want more on symptoms or fixes?
So increased tonicity means we have what? More solutes, less solutes? What does it mean? More water, less concentration? Tell me in a few words.
Increased tonicity means more solutes, like lactose, in the gut lumen, pulling more water in, raising water volume, not concentration. Clear? Want an analogy?
What's the difference between solute and concentration?
Solute, stuff dissolved in a liquid, e.g., lactose, sodium. Concentration, how much solute is in a given volume, e.g., high lactose, egg high concentration. More solutes increase concentration, raising tonicity, pulling water into gut lumen. Clear? Want
No.
an example?
No, not clear. Yes, I want.
Solute, sugar, lactose, and milk. Concentration, how much sugar in a glass of milk, e.g., 5 g per n, low, 50 g per n, high. In lactose intolerance, lots of lactose, solute, stays in gut, raising concentration, making it hypertonic, so water rushes in, causing diarrhea. Clear? Want another analogy?
I don't get it, bro.
Alright, super simple. Solute is stuff like sugar, lactose. Concentration is how crowded that sugar is in the gut. In lactose intolerance, leftover lactose piles up, high solute, high concentration, sucking water into the gut, making watery stool.
What's the
Clear?
difference between solute and concentration?
Solute, the stuff dissolved, like lactose or salt. Concentration, how much of that stuff is packed into a liquid, e.g., lots of lactose, egg high concentration. In lactose intolerance,
Well, so an increase in solutes would it not mean increase in concentration?
yes, more solutes, like lactose, in the gut lumen increases concentration, more stuff per volume. In lactose intolerance, high lactose solutes raise concentration, making the lumen hypertonic, pulling
Alright.
water in,
Thank
causing
you.
diarrhea.
Thanks
Clear?
for watching this
Want a
episode,
quick
guys.
example?
I'll go. Thank you, guys. See ya.